call the regular scheduled meeting of the Texarkana, Arkansas Board of Directors to order. At this time, we'll have a roll call.
Director Roberts.
Here.
Director Harris.
Here.
Assistant Mayor Holly Bush is absent. Director Brewer.
Here.
Director Minor. Director Hart.
Here.
Mayor Brown.
Here. At this time, we'll stand. Director Harris has a guest to give our invocation today, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be done by Deputy City Clerk Jenny Norris.
Yes, and our guest is Apostle Marvin Warren of New Direction Kingdom Minister International, and also a classmate of mine from Arkansas High Class of 79. And I'm going to say this too. He just did 37 years with TSID, Texarkana, Arkansas School District, and he just retired this year. Welcome to the phone.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come at this moment, first of all, thanking you for the day that you've blessed us with. Thank you, Father, for your grace and your mercy that has kept us and covered us as we've gone throughout our day. And now, Father, as we've gathered here on this evening, that the matters concerning the city of Texarkana, Arkansas can be discussed. We ask, Father, that you would be in the midst of this time of gathering. We pray, Father, that you would grant wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to each and every one who will make the vital decisions that will impact our communities in our city. We pray your continued blessings upon every board member, that you would continue to strengthen them and cover them and keep them. And we pray your blessings upon Texarkana, Arkansas, and Texas as well, God, that you will keep our city and continue to bless it, to prosper, and to grow. I ask these blessings now in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you have your cell phone, we'd appreciate if you would silence your cell phones during the meeting. Also, if you wish to address the board tonight, I have one guest that citizen that wishes to address the board tonight. If you wish to address the board, if you'd fill out a citizen's communication card and get that to Jenny, we would appreciate it. We'll have a record of you speaking. It is not a requirement, but if you would do that, it would help us. Okay, moving right along, we'll move right on into our citizens' communication time. And Ms. Dinkins, you're first up. I have your card first, so you can come forward. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I just want to come forward and say I am Bernice Dinkins. I live at 204 East Side Drive here in Texarkana, Arkansas, right across the street of the Body Boys Club. I was coming this evening asking about the lots that I've been calling this city about, cutting behind my house, on the side of my house, on that side of my house, and in the back of my house. And I also want to know what is the update on the Nix Creek. Have you all, anybody walked down there and seen the creek? In fact, it looks worse now than it did before they worked on it that one time last year. I just want to know what's going on with that.
Okay. We'll just have somebody get in touch with you, Ms. Dinkins. We'll have someone get in touch with you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else here that wishes to address the board tonight? Anyone else? If not, we'll move into, we have a proclamation tonight that I will read. Who are we going to, we're going to present this to you, Jay, or, okay. So we have a proclamation tonight for Park and Recreation Month, July of 2022. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Texarkana, Arkansas, and whereas Park and Recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, and whereas the Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. Whereas Park and Recreation is the leading provider of health meals, nutrition services, and education. And whereas Parks and Recreation programming and education activities such as out-of-school time programming, youth sports, and environmental education are critical to childhood development. And whereas Parks and Recreation increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And whereas Parks and Recreation is essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Park and Recreation Month, and whereas Texarkana, Arkansas recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Alan Brown, Mayor of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, recognize the month of July 2022 as Park and Recreation Month. And it's signed by myself and Heather Sawyer, our city clerk.
Thank you very much. Recognize our Park and Recreation. Here, you get the camera. One, two, three.
Thank you. Moving right on into our presentations, we have one presentation tonight, which I'm told is not here, for a service award, and that's Dorian Cox Jr. with the Texarkana Water Utilities for 5 years. Will y'all give him a round of applause, and we'll see if he gets his. Moving on into our consent agenda, tonight we have 2 items on our consent agenda. One, item number 3 is approval of the minutes of the regular scheduled meeting on June 21st. And number 4 is adopting resolution designating and authorizing the mayor and the city manager to execute certain documents in connection with funding administered by the Arkansas Natural Resources Commission for proposed water and sewer projects. What would be the desire of the board on the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Moving right on into our regular agenda tonight, item number 5 is to adopt a resolution to amend the fiscal year 2022 budget to include the increase to the Municipal Health Benefit Fund premium. Our Finance Director, Ms. Tyrunda Henderson.
Good afternoon, City Manager, Mr. Ellington, Mayor Brown, and the Board of Directors. The city has received notice from the Municipal Health Benefit Fund of a premium rate increase. Due to the city's loss ratio, the rate class will move from Class 6 to Class 7. The health insurance premium for employee-only coverage will increase from $532.08 to $572.08. And employee and family coverage will increase from $1,184.20 to $1,284.20. The city's current contribution towards the employee-only coverage is $496.08 and $556.08 for employee plus dependent coverage. We are asking the city to assume the increase, which will bring the city's contribution to $536.08 for employee-only coverage and $656.08 for employee plus family coverage. This increase went into effect July 2022, and funds will be allocated from cost savings reflected in the current 2022 budget. We will review the city's contribution again during the 2023 budget cycle. Are there any questions?
So Tyrunda, what's the total cost of those added for the total cost of that
This total expense is $66,240.
for all employees?
Yes, sir.
That's the way the new increase will be.
Yes, ma'am.
And the former amount, you may not have it.
No, I'm sorry. The new rate is $572.08, and the previous rate is $532.08.
Right.
And that's for employee only. And for family coverage, the new rate is $1,284.20, and the previous rate was $1,184.20.
What was the previous increase we did last year? We did an increase last year.
It was at the same rate, $40 and $100.
So it was $60-something thousand then.
That is
This
correct.
is another $60,000.
That is correct.
And you want to review it at the end of the year in the budget cycle because it may be up again.
Yes,
It was actually for last year, it was $130-something thousand.
For the entire year.
For the full year, we're only doing it, we're proposing now to do it for the rest of this year. And then if we can fit it into the 2023 budget, if not, then it would have to be picked up by the employees.
So this
Correct.
is not perpetuity, this is just to the end of the year, and then we'll revisit it at the end in the budget cycle.
yes, sir.
And Director Hart, you asked earlier that all employees now, that does not cover retirees. They pay.
It does
their-
not cover retirees. They're responsible for 100% of
Okay.
theirs.
You mentioned about a 6 to 7%. It went from 6 to 7.
We went from
lost.
a rate class
Rate-
of
rate class.
class 6 to a class 7
Why was that? Why did that happen?
because of our loss ratio. Our loss ratio is at
Astronomical.
165%.
Those would be 60.
165%.
Wow,
Yes,
165%.
yes.
Need to get some wellness programs in the city.
We are looking at several different options. We are considering, we have future plans which include development of an employee assistance program, which we're already in the works of, development of wellness clinics, and also just looking at other companies to see what their rates are. But after discussion, we're fairly certain that we'll be in the same position with each one of them because of our rate class. I'm sorry, for our loss ratio.
Jay, have we looked into any of these clinics that may work with the city on the amount of money on insurance and copay they would maybe offer to see our employees?
We'll be looking at that, check into the wellness side, providers, people who provide that service, what they can do to help us reduce our loss ratio is really what we're interested in. So yes, sir, we've
that's
already
right.
identified several of those in the marketplace
Yeah.
and have people that are interested in doing some research for us.
Yeah, because if we don't reduce that, we're just right back in the same thing in budget time.
Right, and I'm
Yeah.
reviewing, Tyron and I will be reviewing those loss ratios to see where those are occurring also in our employees and to see if those occurrences can be helped through the wellness program side as well.
I think it's safe to say insurance isn't going to go down anytime soon.
No, it's
No.
not.
Any other discussion?
Thank you.
If not, I'd have the city attorney read the resolution.
Whereas the city has received notice from the Municipal Health Benefit Fund of a premium rate increase which will begin July 1, 2022 due to MHBF rate class change. And whereas as a result of the rate class change, the premium for single employee coverage will increase from $532.08 per month to $572 per month, an increase of $40 a month, and the premium for employee and family coverage will increase from $1,184.20 a month to $1,284.20, an increase of a month in the city. And whereas the city contributes $496.08 per month to participate employee coverage, as single participants and family participants, and $556.08 for employee plus dependent coverage, with the remainder being contributed by the employee. And whereas the city manager and staff recommend that the city's respective contributions be increased to absorb the increase, whereas the funds for such an increase are available in the existing budget, now therefore be it resolved by that the Municipal Health Benefit Fund's anticipated premium increase described above is hereby recognized. The city will absorb the increase with no increase in employee contribution at this time, passed and approved this 5th day of July 2022.
So these city attorneys read the resolution. What would be the desire of the board to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
I'd like to ask one more question. Tyrone, last year when we did that increase, what was our loss ratio then?
It was, I don't remember the exact amount, but I want to say it was over 130%.
So we've gone from 130 to 160.
Yes.
Okay.
6 months.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Director Roberts,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Brewer,
Yes.
Director Minor,
Yes.
Director Hart,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. The resolution passes. Moving on to item number 6, adopt an ordinance granting a limited franchise to Bird Rides Incorporated for a non-inclusive ride and privilege to operate a stand-up electric scooter sharing program. Our city manager.
Mayor and the board members, this is a limited franchise, meaning it's termed out. It's only going to be in effect for 12 months. After discussion with the Texas side, we had both, Dr. Orr and I had a number of inquiries from scooter industry, and there's probably at least a dozen operators in that industry. We both looked at taking the time to put an ordinance in place that would be in place forever in relationship with that. And then we backed off and looked at trying to put something in place that would be a trial system for us to even see if this can work for Texarkana. Okay, so that's the reason this comes to you as a limited franchise. This one's on your agenda. It will also be on the Texas agenda next week, I believe. So we're recommending that you choose this. I'll give you a little bit of the presentation. Let's go to the next slide. This is some of their paraphernalia for how and why you have bird scooters in a community and how it affects people in their lives. Next slide. It's considered a micro-mobility instrument, meaning it will move you in short distances in a quick amount of time rather than a walk, and is all electric in that sense as well, too. They founded in 2017. They're on 5 continents, 25 countries, 400 cities, and have 100 million rides every day. So they're a pretty strong provider in the market. You may have seen them in Little Rock. You may have seen them in, let me think, Pine Bluff, I think, is the other one in Arkansas. But there's 4 or 5 in Arkansas with this company now, and another dozen or so in the Texas market as well. And the last one is where they are all over the country, small and large communities. So you can see there's Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, Texas, Arkansas, and Texas. So you can see a number of those that are close to us. And again, this is a limited franchise operation to see how it works for our community. And both us and the Texas side will do a limited franchise to see how this works. There is a franchise fee associated with this, back to us as well. So it is a pay as you go. Remember, it's electronic, so you go in electronically. The rest of the presentation shows you how to do all that. You've got that in your packet. Shows you how to go in online, sign up, put your credit information, et cetera, in there. And then once you become a part of that system, then all you have to do is key in whatever code or whatever they give you to key in when you key the unit up. But when you key that unit up with your code, it's going to recognize you. It's going to charge your card for whatever that amount of service is. So if you just ride it from here to the post office and back, it's going to charge you for that amount of time. And then it'll come be charged to your account directly.
I have a question.
Yes,
Would
sir.
this device be, permitted to be driven on the highway or just on the sidewalks?
They are primarily designed to be driven on the sidewalk, but they are allowed in the right lane of any travel lane, just like a bicycle would be allowed in any right lane of any travel lane.
What's their speed capacity?
The capacity as far as size,
Yeah, how fast?
how fast. They have a couple of limited speed requirements. I think I wanted to say it was either 15 or 20 miles an hour. Okay.
Jay, I assume that Bird Rides has liability insurance. They will incur any
Yes, sir.
liability with any kind of injuries. The city will not be on the hook.
Yes, sir, and that's in our required franchise.
That's where I was going with that, because I know we have some sidewalk issues. We still in the process of getting the development for that. And so the liability is very important, yeah.
And these actual scooters don't have shock absorbers on them, but we're not going that fast either, hopefully, so.
All right.
Director Harris?
When you say franchise, will you explain that, what does that mean? I kind of know what that means, but the average person that's looking to this may not understand what you mean when you're saying franchise agreement. Or when you go ahead and say it, I go ahead and say, you correct me if I'm right or wrong. That basically means that they gonna let the city park, they own the city right away. That's basically what he means by franchise fee, and they getting paid 10 cents per bike, I guess. That's what they trying to say, so. And that's basically what they mean by franchise. That on the city right away, they gonna, these bikes gonna be stationed, I'm assuming somewhere downtown, in different spots downtown, or a place throughout maybe the city. And that's what it means, franchise fee.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
So in reviewing their contract and stuff, and when I was looking at it, I know that we can't go without having issues with something on down the road. Who's going to monitor? Because I'm not familiar with the Texas Side Scooter, and this is I know of the scooter programs, but certainly this is the first that I've read about. And the first thing that comes to my mind, this is 100% app driven, because I don't know how to use it. Nobody in this room, I would assume, know how to use it. You have to download an app, and it tells you, and it also has a correct me if I'm wrong, but it has a GPS tracking device. It follows you. So are we giving them the designated areas that you can drive in to put in that tracker?
Yes.
And then it's supposed to slow you down and stop you if you get outside those areas?
And there will be a designated ride area as well, and so that will be
So are we going to
advertised.
mark that area, like we mark the entertainment district or something? We plan on marking that, or that GPS is just going to know where that area is? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how this works, because as soon as we pass this or something, somebody's going to ask me something, and it's app driven, I don't know nothing about it, but I just want to kind of know how we're going to have designated parking areas where we can park these things, because in a lot of these cases, you don't bring them back where you got them from. You can drop it, you can put in a designation, and you'll go to that place and stop the thing, keep it there, and then somebody else could rent it, whatever, so.
Sure.
I mean, I just had several brainstorming questions there, that how's this thing going to work? Somebody's going to abandon one of them might break down. Do they call the city? Are we going to manage this through Public Works, or we have another department? We're going to let Eric do it. We're going to, he would probably be a good one, because he'd be the one riding it. So, but I'm just, curious as to if we thought about all that, because we're going to have them issues as soon as they put them in play.
And they do have to, Mayor, first they have to have their own local vendor here, an operator here that does everything from checking the units every day, placing them every day where they want them to be placed.
Like partner
So they're
with one
gonna
of our
do-
bicycle shops or something, somebody that can work on
Exactly.
it.
It'll be somebody that is familiar with minor repairs to this particular unit, and they'll train their operators as well. But again, it will be a local vendor who will do that particular portion of the operation, taking care of them, making sure they're in the locations they want them in every day. Now, let's just say 10 of them end up here at City Hall, well, and they don't want but 3 here. Well, they'll take those other 7 and put them in their other locations. And they'll be working them 7 days a week to make sure and they have the records of where they went to, what their most travel spaces were. So within a 3-month time period or so, they will have a pretty good indication of, they put 3 units here to begin with, but they may need 5 units here now, because I'm gonna ride them twice, to the Texas City Hall. I get over there to the Texas City Hall, I get off of it, I go to a meeting, I come back out, and my scooter's gone, okay? Well, it's been, somebody else came along and took it, and either there's not one there, I gotta walk back if that's not the case, or if there's a different one there, I take the different one and ride back if I like to do that. So it's a personal preference item, it's a convenience item, and that's the reason we're doing it as a limited process, just to see if it works in our community.
The last 2 questions, and maybe Bobby can answer this, and maybe George can answer one of them, but it keeps referring in here to the state statute on helmet law as to whether our city or your state ordinances requires a helmet on a motor scooter or whatever, that these contracts you would adhere to whatever that ordinance is. Do we have, are you aware of an ordinance that requires you to wear a helmet on a motorcycle? Or these are considered motorcycle, moped type things from everything I've read, and you abide by the same statute. So do we have a helmet?
I do not think we have a helmet statute in Arkansas.
Do you know, George?
And now, in Arkansas, I believe, the assistant chief can tell you for sure, but, whatever the way this is written, the franchise approving this agreement, and it's written to say, okay, these things can be operated wherever it's lawful and however it's lawful to operate. And it kind of leaves it at that. So if there's a state statute that says you only ride it in the right-hand lane, that's where you ride it. If there's an ordinance that says you don't park it on the sidewalk or ride it on the sidewalk that may exist now, that one's going to apply until this board would say, no, here's what we want to do, and allow that. I know in some cities where I've used them, they're in limited areas where they say you got to stay off the sidewalk, you're out there with the traffic.
Do we have such a thing with helmets, or can you, my question to you would be, can you ride these things and get a citation? Can you disobey something and a police officer pull you over or something, or
I don't know
what?
what the licensing requirement would be. If you operate a motorcycle on the highway, you have to be licensed, the same thing with a moped.
Are you required to wear a helmet?
If you're under the age of 18, I believe in Arkansas, you have to wear a helmet. So if
And-
you're an adult, it's not required.
I think those are things that, this one says that it's encouraged to do, helmets, to leave some flexibility there for the board should they want to put those in there and be able to. Now, the licensing, the statute says that if you're, I think it's 16 and older, that they can operate these things.
Yeah.
And the statute's where the insurance provisions come from and things.
I mean, you and I have been to Fayetteville several times, and you see these things by the dozens in Fayetteville. None of them are wearing, probably they are over 18 probably, but they're not wearing helmets or anything like that. I mean, you need to get out of the way.
Well, I mean, then this is written to say, that exposure, whatever it may be, is really on the rider and/or this company, and the city's doing nothing but allowing them the opportunity to use them right away, just like you would the cable company or the power company or something like that.
Is there a certain time frame? Is it a 24/7 type thing, or?
The statute it says that the city can, adopt regulations that would apply to this, those don't exist right now.
Would be,
We can get out too. If we get in this thing, it was a disaster. How long has the Texas I've been doing it, Jay? Do you know?
They've not done it yet
They're
either.
fixing
Brent.
it.
They are in the process of moving this forward as a limited franchise as well.
only concern I'd have is if they're anytime really. I mean, if there's not a time frame, you could have, being in the entertainment district, I mean, can you get a DWI on a scooter? I mean,
Good question.
well, I mean, somebody could easily get hurt.
Can you get a DWI on the scooter?
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
I would think the DWI is pretty straightforward. However,
I mean-
the city may establish hours of operation, so the
I mean,
concept
down in
is
New
there.
Orleans, I know they've got them down there, and I've been down there, and I've had to jump out of the way. And that was my only concern, if you've got somebody, I guess, scooting while drunk, I guess. I don't know, would be my concern there.
Hey, George,
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
George, I have a question. Did you mention hours of operation?
The way this agreement was done, when it came to us, it underwent a substantial revision, and what it looks like now, it gives the city a lot of flexibility in, establishing the restrictions, being consistent with the statute.
The ordinances
The ordinance, that way it's consistent with the statute and allows the city to establish these things. For example, the parking, somebody mentioned, it says that you'll park it in designated areas. If you start designating some areas, then that's where it should be. Now, how you enforce that against the company and/or the rider, that's a.
I was looking more towards the visibility as far as the lighting on the moped itself, of the scooter itself, as far as operating at nighttime. Yeah, that's why I was asking.
I don't think they have any lights.
I don't know about the lighting in the statute.
think
I do
they
not
do.
remember that. I don't remember it from the ordinance when it was drafted.
Yeah, I don't think they have.
And so that may be a thing to establish with ours as well as that, because these things, you've seen them, are pretty uniform from city to city, how they look. And the statute has, this is what qualifies as a scooter, and here's what you have to put in it. It's got to be of this weight and of this size and doesn't go faster than 15 miles an hour, I think it is, as the city manager said, things like that.
Jay, have you talked to our PD about what their recommendation would be on this, or whether they think that it's going to be a traffic nuisance, or?
We've not, we've got a scheduled meeting about downtown with the PD here shortly, and so we're gonna go through a number of items, and that was on our list, so.
I think you got a lot of holes in this ordinance.
Should we
I
table
think
it?
you need to table this ordinance. You got too many holes. My opinion.
I wonder what the prices are, approximately.
Or what we
I don't
just read
know.
the first
Is it
reading?
by the hour, by the,
2 weeks to
By the minutes,
Fine with me.
by the minute?
yes, ma'am.
Director Harris is suggesting as we could read it once tonight. There's nothing that requires it to be read 3 times in one meeting to pass, and it'll be automatically moved to the next agenda, be whatever the desire of the board will be.
And by that time, we should be able to talk.
I agree with you, Director Harris.
I agree with that, too.
So any other discussion? What would be the desire of the board to have the ordinance read on its first reading?
I move read and abbreviated form.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to have the ordinance read on its first reading in abbreviated form. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Director Roberts?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Director Brewer?
Yes.
Director Minor?
Yes.
Director Hart?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
An ordinance granting a limited franchise to Bird Rides, Inc. for the non-exclusive right and privilege to operate a stand-up electric scooter sharing program in areas of the public right-of-way in accordance with applicable law.
Ordinance has been read on its first reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its second reading tonight? Is there a motion to have it read on its second reading? Hearing none, the item will move for its second reading to the 18th of July's meeting. Next, we have item number 7, which is to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 26, Article 2, Sections 26 through 28 and 26 through 29 of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Code of Ordinances to provide for revisions to water and sewer rates. Gary Smith.
Mayor, members of the boards, thank you for letting us be here tonight. I know we went over a couple presentations and just wanted to run a couple things by y'all if we could before y'all look into this, and then we'll be glad to answer any questions, that you may have. But we just want to remind everyone that the reason we're proposing this rate study is basically for 2 reasons. One, to help our fund balance, which Tricia's going to talk about in a second, and then projects. We're way behind on what we need to be doing with our infrastructure. It's not an excuse, but many cities are in the same boat. It's not just Texarkana, Arkansas. And I just want to highlight some of those projects. One of them is that we have in there, and this is spread out over time. Part of the projects are debt funded, which is in the rate study, and part of them are through the cash through the rate increases. But one of the bigger ones is the automatic meter reading system. We're proposing this for several reasons. A lot of our meters are old. They're real old. Now, the good thing with Texarkana, with the clay in our soils, it keeps them lubricated so they don't go as quick as a lot of meters, but we have not had a meter replacement program. This automatic meter reading would do 2 things. One, it's going to increase our revenue because there's a lot of these old meters, I mean, some of them are out there 50, 60 years old, and they're not, I know they're not going to be reading accurate. We can replace them with this metering system, plus it's just the state of the art. We have choices, we'd have to look into it to see what we can afford, and the companies that we've been dealing with would help us with that. But, you know, we can either do a fixed system, which we sit in the office and can read everything, turn meters off. We can still charge our turn-off fee on fee, but you can turn it off from the office for people not paying instead of sending someone out there coming back. It should help, reduce employees required, or that we could put them in operations where we need more employees. But it has a lot of advantages to it, but that's one of the bigger projects that we're proposing. Of course, the other one that we discussed, and Mr. Harris had sent me some information that we are looking into, but there's several. We got a webinar we're doing next week on another funding. It's the lead and copper rule. Right, so we've bought some time. Right now we just have to do a paper study for the October deadline of 24, but after that we still have to dig everything up where we think we have them. So we've got about $3 million in there just to identify them. And then hopefully if we get some of this grant money, that'll offset it, but we won't know that for a while if that comes through. The other projects, Nix Creek sewer improvements, the trunk main, the city gave us a little over $1.7 million from the American Rescue Plan Act that we're doing, but the actual projects, I think it's about $4.2 to $4.3 million to do the whole trunk main. But that's a big help, but the remainder of it is in this rate study. We have $2 million in there just for our sewer mains. We have a lot of trunk mains they're huge, they're clay, they leak. And so we put $2 million. You could put $20 million in there, but this is a big start if we could do this, the $2 million. And same with water, we've got $3 million in there. We've got a lot of asbestos cement water mains. We've got a lot of cast iron water mains. The problem with cast iron, it might be 6 inches, but if you actually look at it, you might have 2 inches on the inside. Some of them just depend on the area. And then just deteriorated other water mains that we need to replace, and upsized water mains. Then the other one is our North Texarkana plant. We have $3.5 million in there total for the whole project. Right now we're good, but if somebody comes to a ready site and has a big discharge, depending on how much they add, we could take it. So we have proposed in there to do that. And then there's a lot more projects in there. I know y'all probably looked at them, but the other part of it is the rate stage for the fund balance.
Yeah, just in preliminary work I've done for budget so far, I am concerned that our fund balance for FY22, after we get revised numbers, is probably going to be around 25 days or less. That's about an ending balance of $875,000 or less. We need to be at about $2.1 million to have 60 days. The 3-year scenario, the rate study projects at the end of fiscal year 23, we'll have around 32 days of operating reserves. And by fiscal year 25, we'll be back at about 62, which is where we really need to be. And then there's a 4th year, 2026. There's not a rate increase that year. It's just we're just where we need to be. We're able to meet our expenses with the revenues for that year.
So we'll be glad to answer any questions that y'all might have.
At what point do we reach that 62 days?
2025.
How long did you say?
2025 is the projected.
3 years. And now we have 25 days.
That's what I'm predicting.
If we stay with hot, dry summer, that will help. We'll sell a lot more water,
Yeah.
but that's being conservative.
Our biggest struggle this next budget year is going to be the chemicals.
I'm sorry.
The chemicals. The chlorine especially. I think chlorine,
To treat, yeah. What, that on those meters, that's, replacing the water meters. That's on the homeowner.
That's on what?
On the homeowner.
No, ma'am, that would be, because we put the meters in, they'll pay the meters, but this project would replace them. Some of them we wouldn't have to replace, the ones that have been there for 10 years, which is quite a few. We just have to replace the register where you read them, so they'll match, just so it can be an automatic read. There's different types of drive-by. Macedonia ILO in the southwest part of town has a drive-by system where you drive by and it just clicks, it's reading these systems. And it's a lot cheaper. So when we get down to it, we'd be looking at all the options to see what Texarkana, Arkansas could really afford. But the fixed base is optimum. We might not could afford it, but that's where everything's read. You're in the office, and even the homeowner has access to it. They can look at their account and see where their water usage is and why it's going up or why it's gone down. They can look at all that. They'll have access to that too. But that's the premium system, and I don't know that we could afford that, but this actual number is close to doing that, the 4.3 million that we had in there.
You did say if you receive a grant, it's going to help offset that
We
a
don't
little
know.
bit. Yeah.
For the lead and copper, we're hoping to, but for the automatic meter reading, they used to have some green money out there for that. I don't think it's still there. But on that, we're dealing with Andy Franks. He's done some of these systems for different cities, and we try to spread the work out to the
Right.
engineers in Texarkana, but I don't think that money's any there anymore for that. But the lead and copper one is the one we're looking at. There's money available to identify them. And some cities have already got to it in the Northeast. They actually started up there first. But we are pursuing that. And if we get that, then that would help offset or give us money, because there's still a lot more projects. We're trying to get that balancing point where the rates aren't too high, that we didn't think it'd work, and, because we could do millions and millions and millions of projects, and I don't mean they sound just bad, but if we got grant money, like I said last time, we'd like to use that to replace more clay sewer pipe or something, or, whatever the board so desired.
We received some information about this, and can you all tell me anything about approximate rate increases? And is that, these other pages of information showing?
I'm not.
It's a
I'm sorry.
gradual increase per year. It's $1.77 the first year. Goes up from there. At the end of 2025, it's a little over $6. So you have 3 years, it'll increase by a little over $6.
3 to 5 years.
It's effective in October. If this passes, the rate increase would kick in October. And so you'd go from $11 to $12.60 for base rate for 2,000 gallons.
Yes, sir. And
3
it's
years.
in the,
$11 to
Let's just round it.
$12.60. Yeah.
Yeah.
3 years.
I mean, I have a couple of things. One, I was a little shocked to see it on the agenda for this meeting, but I thought that we had discussed just the things that you had talked about, because the one thing that I know is that 100%, I'm going to support the rate increase because I have to, because I've seen this coming since late 2019, after my first year as mayor, and then in 2020 when it started getting really bad, and we just have not been able to act probably as quick as what we've needed to. This has been a mess, in my opinion, for a long time.
yes, sir.
And but what I feel like is when you do a rate increase, and this is my opinion, is when we look at an ordinance that we do a rate increase for, we should be telling the citizens and people what we're getting for that. And all this ordinance does, in my opinion, is kick in the rate increase. That's all that's in here. It talks about the sewer rate, it talks about commercial rates, it talks about everything. And it doesn't say in there everything that we're talking about, because we have several facets to this project. One of our primary concerns is certainly increasing the fund balance. You can't continue to run a company without any money. And that's the easiest and simplest way I can explain it to you. But at the end of the day, when all your savings is gone and you haven't done anything to prevent it, you have no money for anything. So that's not good. So we've got to make sure that we pad that. We don't really say anything in this ordinance about in 2025, we project that ordinance, as Trish said, we project that to be 62 days where we need to be. If I was a citizen, I would understand that, and I would say, well, that would be good, and then you would leave me alone for a while, because that's the whole projection, is to get that fund balance back. Also, the projection in this fund rate by this rate study by the rate study people that did it is projecting that increase in what our operations costs are is increasing, plus it's projecting fixing infrastructure things that we've told our citizens we're going to fix for a long time. But we just, again, tonight, we discussed 5 or 6 different projects around and about way, and nobody really knows. I know because I've participated in both the workshops. She had a presentation that day, and I know what some of those projects are. I know where ARP funds are going to fix that sewer line and that kind of stuff, and I can talk about that. I don't think a lot of our citizens know that. To me, I think it would be important at the end of the day, if we're going to raise somebody's rate by $6, is that we're explaining to them what we're doing and where this money is going to go over the long haul. The difficult process, as you know, Gary, will be to explain to them when that's going to happen. because we're not going to be able to, but we are also doing the most critical part of that, and that's putting the financing in place and the finances in place to take care of it. We'll get to it when we can get to it, but we're not going to be able to get any of these things that we know that we want to do with this rate study money and go fix money and go fix some of these major water leaks and these major things that will make the water company better. We don't know when we can get to them. We can prioritize them, but we still have labor shortages, we have supply shortages, we have a number of things. So me personally would like to see an ordinance that explains, we prioritize what we're trying to do and what we're doing with this rate study. Here, when I read this, and if I went online as a citizen and I read this packet, I'm saying that we just voted for a rate increase and we just heard from the water company in a workshop on where we're going to spend it. And to me, it's a substantial amount of money.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we're going to spend millions of dollars in infrastructure, which our citizens want to know. So me personally, I would like to see us work on the ordinance a little bit to where we can at least explain what we're trying to do. I can't tell you, even as mayor today, if this passed tonight, everything that we sit down without going and having a meeting with you, what our priorities are and where we're going to spend this money outside of getting the fund balance to 62 days. I'd like to see a little more detail in that. That's just my personal opinion, and that's up to the board.
Mayor, I might have got it wrong, but at the last workshop, I was under the impression we weren't going to be voting on this till the end of August. And maybe I misunderstood.
That's the deadline. I mean, we need to have it approved by the end of August to implement.
Correct, but that would give us time to, something of this nature, I wasn't expecting it to be this soon. And you're talking about, I'm very engaged in my ward and I want to be able to sell this to my constituents. And like the mayor said, this is what you're getting, this is what you can expect. Right now, I can't do that.
I understand.
Yeah, I thought we would be coming back maybe this meeting, Gary, with you needing an approval to go to the state for behalf of the state, approval to go to the state to look for grant money.
That was the earlier resolution. That was the one.
Oh, that was there? Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
You're right, okay.
And that was for three specific
That's
projects.
right, consent number 4. You didn't read it out.
And then these others, we don't know the timeline, like for the lead copper, that's the big one that we're pursuing. And I don't know the timeline, I don't know if it'll be here in time, but we are pursuing it and trying our best to get as much grant money as we can.
So I would agree with the mayor and say that it's a good idea for us. We've done so many things over the years of raising rates and accumulating money and saying we're going to do all these projects, then we don't do them. And then we lose credibility with our constituents. So I think it's a good idea to work on this ordinance and be able to have a good timeline, like the mayor said, of showing the citizens based off of this increase of what it's going to do. Obviously, one of those is that we can't let the Arkansas side of the water utilities go out of business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And at 25 days, that's dangerously low.
It is.
Very.
Well, would the 1st of August be enough time for our August meeting?
It needs to pass by the second meeting in August. And it's just up to it's up to the board whether you want to have just a very specific prioritized workshop to where we address the issues in a time frame, give Gary and them some time to put some stuff together on our projects, on what we have our wish list and we have what we know we want to do that's built into this 3-year rate study. So we could put a wish list together and maybe build that into an ordinance, but we would probably, in my opinion, we'd probably have to have a workshop so that everybody's on the same page with what those projects are. Then, no questions after that workshop could develop, George could develop an ordinance out of that workshop, and then we could vote on it in August. But we'd have to have that workshop the end of this month, first week of August, and get it on the agenda for, the good part about it, if there is a good part about it, I've not heard a lot of negativity about not supporting a rate increase. It's a matter of how we want to justify supporting a rate increase. So it's probably going to pass. So you could have a workshop just to specify how to craft the ordinance to where everybody's comfortable with what we're doing and the water company's comfortable with trying to fulfill it. It's what an ordinance is. An ordinance is a law of the city. It has to be followed. So
Well, Mayor, I'm all for giving Gary time. You know, when we discussed this several months ago, we talked about transparency. And so giving him time to go ahead and, you know, work this out, you know, so we can be as transparent with the citizens, that'll help us and the citizens as well.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yes.
Is this a rate increase or is this a study? I'm hearing two different things, so.
Well, we've,
That's why I said, what's before us tonight? What is
a
this?
rate increase, an ordinance for a rate increase that is developed from the study.
Oh.
We're using the study's recommendation on the rate increase to, and all of those projects and things that we need to get done are in that rate study. That's how you project how much of increase you need to get to that into that 3-year period.
I mean, without a doubt, we're gonna have to do it. I mean, there's just no way around it because it should have been done decades ago.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, what was it, last week, SWEPCO hit us at $12 or $13 a month.
Yeah.
This is definitely not $12 or $13 a month, so.
So George's point of, if it's the consensus of the board, would it not be in the best interest if this is, if what we're saying, this is not going to be the ordinance? We're not going to, we could amend this ordinance, I guess, with the specific projects that we're going to address and what this actual rate increase encompasses and what we intend to do with the money. We could amend it so we could read it tonight, or could we table it and amend it, what you're suggesting, or table it indefinitely and start over?
Well, there's not, if it's not going to be adopted in full tonight, there's not a terrible rush, and this is my opinion, just thinking it through, to read it once or twice or even 3 times tonight if you're not going to vote to approve it. And so I think if you feel more comfortable either including within this a list of priorities or uses, or running alongside and adopting simultaneously a resolution that says, here's how we prioritize them based on how it stands on July 5 or whatever date it is. And this is how those rates are being adjusted by. And the reason I'm trying to think it through that without knowing what that list or what those priorities look like is this is just a clean amendment of rates based on these charts.
This would end up being part of the ordinance.
That's right. This is probably still usable for that purpose. Now, the additional parts that you're talking about, I think it's going to see what they are and really kind of what the board's intent is, and then make some suggestions with that. So whether they're in this or simultaneously.
If we tabled it and we bring it back up at the next meeting or the next meeting or whatever, could we remove it from the table and add an amendment to it?
You remove it from the table or just leave it there and have a different version that you run. It would either way is the same result.
So
And I
George-
think it just looks like what it is.
So my question is, if we do list these in the ordinance, does that tie us, or the water utilities, to having to do those of what we put in the ordinance in that order?
You put your finger on exactly why I was hedging just a little bit to see what the abilities of, to think through what the abilities of this board are within the framework, which is unique for water and unique for sewer, independent of one another under the state statutory system.
Yeah.
So those can be very ticky, and that's why I'm trying to think through and put in the collective thought here of different ways to do it. I think that there are ways that can be done. You know, there have been bond issues passed in the past that specifically talk about use versus this. This is different than a bond issue. This is
Yes.
within the authority here.
I would just
I would-
suggest that we table.
I'd like to make a motion that we table.
I've got a question first. On this, would we be able to, the TW employees, it's been, 5 years since you got a raise, 6 years?
Yes, sir, and the rate study does include a 3%.
Okay, so that would be something that,
Would be in a specified use of the funds that would be included in this resolution. In other words, if I'm kind of following George, and what he's saying is, we could end up actually passing this particular ordinance to include the rate increase, and we could possibly adopt a separate resolution to say the intent of how that money is to be spent and why we're having to do it.
That's what I'm thinking. If we can look at and try to build it as closely as to what the board collectively says, hey, here's what we want to do.
Right.
And then for any differences between your intentions and the way it looks, I'm happy to answer those questions and say, here's what.
So here's what I think. I think that if you build all this stuff into this ordinance and then, you know as well as I do, priorities change, but then we're tied to some, I think you just go ahead and vote on it, and as board members and work with the media on what the intent of spending the money is for. I'm always against giving a big pot of money to somebody without any list of stuff, but we know, based off of what you said in this public meeting, of what the intent for the money is. Us putting it in an ordinance and then tying us to having to do those specific things when next January there might be something that's tremendously greater, does that tie our hands of using that money to be able to shuffle those projects around because we've added them into the ordinance?
Couldn't you go back and amend the ordinance?
I think just the concepts, obviously this is new, but I think what would differentiate this from a bond issue that would say, here's how you're going to spend the money. For example, there was one with the jail years and years ago.
Yeah.
That's where it goes. This one is different in that it's a rate and just a pure act of this board, which would be an amendment of something, that it had done in the past, whichever board was sitting then.
Yeah, but we could do that even if we voted for it tonight.
I think that to be the case.
So why wouldn't we just go ahead and vote for it instead of tabling it and let them go ahead and get started? I'm against tabling it. I want to go ahead and vote, my opinion.
Any other discussion? We have an ordinance before us. Any other discussion? What would be the desire of the board to have the ordinance read on its first reading tonight?
Motion to be read in first.
Is there a second? Is there a second? There's not. So the ordinance will not be read tonight on its first reading. Moving right along to our last item on the regular agenda, which is item number 8, which is to adopt the ordinance to rezone a tract of land located in Ward 1 of 4026 Genoa Road from R1 rural residential to A1 mixed-use rural zoning in order to build a shop in a side yard of a primary structure. Ms. Beck.
Good evening, Mayor, Directors, and City Manager. Let me see. We have a pointer.
Ma'am? Oh, no, ma'am.
Well, anyway,
Are you
I
in
think
the,
we can all see the map and kind of familiar with the area. That's Genoa Road at the top. That C3 red zoning there on the right side of Rondo Road is a commercial center. Three Chicks is on the north side there. The blue line is a water line, and that gold line is the actual Genoa Road. The existing land use all around there is single-family dwelling. It's in the overlay district where that cross-hatching is. That's where the manufactured home overlay district is located. So the zoning is R1 consistently on all sides for this property. The long-term comprehensive plan does not include this area. It was outside the boundaries that were considered. And but it's typical of property that's annexed in rural areas. It has the R1 default zoning, and a lot of it is undeveloped and it's just a single-family home, more farmland. And the request to go to the A1 mixed use is because of the flexibility in how you can use, how the construction on that property can be done. Mr. Doss, who's here this evening, he wants to put his shop kind of where that L shape on the right side there. It's in the side yard of where his home is located, and that's not allowed in the ordinances. An accessory building in most zones except the A1 zone has to be in the rear yard of the house. And that makes sense in a, in a urban setting. You don't want to have a shop in your front yard or on the side of the yard. But in rural areas, it's found to be more appropriate, and that's the most convenient place for this property owner. And he's, when he learned of the possibility of being able to do that with the A1 zone, he's applied for that. There is a fire hydrant. You can see that kind of circle on that blue line on the west side there. That's the fire hydrant. It's approximately 125 feet west of the property. We notified 13 adjacent property owners. We had a call from a neighbor across the street, and he said he was interested in the zone. That sounded like something he might do also. So we didn't have any objections, no opposition. The planning commissioner that moved to approve was Dr. Randall Hickerson, seconded by Mr. Jason Dupree. It was unanimous. And all the commissioners were present, so we had a 7-0 vote on that. So that's kind of where we're at, and be glad to answer any questions. And like I said, Mr. Doss is present if you would care to speak to him.
Does anybody have any questions of Ms. Beck? Okay. I remind the board this is an ordinance. To become an ordinance, it would need to be read 3 times tonight. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its first reading?
First reading. Second.
So motion and second to have it read on its first reading in abbreviated form. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Director Roberts,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Brewer,
Yes.
Director Minor,
Yes.
Director Hart,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance amending ordinance number K-286 is amended, declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
The ordinance has been read on its first reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its second reading tonight?
I move that the rule is further suspended and place the ordinance on second reading. Same fashion.
Second.
So have a motion and a second to have it read in abbreviated form on its second reading. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Director Roberts,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Brewer,
Yes.
Director Minor,
Yes.
Director Hart,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance amending ordinance number K-286 is amended and for other purposes.
Ordinance has been read on its second reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its third and final reading?
I move that the rule is continued suspended and place the ordinance on the third and final reading.
Second.
So have a motion and a second to have it read in its abbreviated form on its third and final reading. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Director Roberts,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Brewer,
Yes.
Director Minor,
Yes.
Director Hart,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance amending ordinance number K-286 is amended, declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
So the ordinance has been read on its third and final reading tonight. What would be the desire of the board to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt. Prior to the board voting to adopt this ordinance, is there anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this particular ordinance? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Director Roberts,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Brewer,
Yes.
Director Minor,
Yes.
Director Hart,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. So the ordinance is adopted. They've asked for an emergency clause. What would be the desire of the board to attach an emergency clause?
Motion to attach an emergency clause.
Second.
Motion and a second to attach emergency clause. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Director Roberts,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Brewer,
Yes.
Director Minor,
Yes.
Director Hart,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. Emergency clause is attached. Moving right along, there's no other business on our agenda tonight. We'll enter into board director's commentary. Is there any board member that wishes to address the board tonight in board commentary? Hearing none. City managers report.
Mayor, board members, I've got a couple items for you. First, I wanted to let you know we started some planning process for, let's see, that's April the 28th of 2024. That will be the day of the eclipse in Texarkana, USA. We're having discussions with both cities about how we celebrate that time period, and we expect a number of visitors to our area for that time period, where they will come get to see the eclipse on both sides of the line. So we are working already on some marketing information for that, and we will work toward community celebrations that celebrate Texarkana together.
Jay, aren't we expecting though too, in one meeting I've had with the state, we're expecting here in Texarkana and surrounding areas about a 90% blackout for 30 or 40 minutes, something.
Our time period, actually, of the total blackout time period is only about 2.5 to 3 minutes, Mayor.
Okay.
So over that time period, but again.
But that's why it's so attractive to all the Eclipse followers, is we're going to be on the dark side.
Right, so we're through the dark zone, so we're on the southerly edge of that zone, but again, we're about a third of the way up in that zone. So there'll be people to the north of us that have a longer time period, but again, I think the longest time period at any location is about 5 to 6 minutes. So we're beginning some planning process for that. I did want to let you know also that we have awarded 27 demolition permits in our community. That's the largest number that we've issued. And so thank you for approving that extra money in our budget process, so you can see that we are trying to move forward with helping to clean our community up as well. The Front Street Plaza area and the stage cover bid comes in on the 12th, next to a week from tomorrow, or a week from today, right? Excuse me. So, and then also on the 12th in the afternoon, we have another bid coming in, which is right-of-way maintenance, which is the extra right-of-way maintenance that we talked about doing on the federal and state highways through the area. So we'll be entertaining both of those bids coming in. Started working with each of y'all individually, and I hope you'll continue on working through the plan of work that we're working toward so we can present that together in a future date. One other thing that I know I think is going to happen, I'm going to promise this one for October, and that's a street sweeper. It's been promised to us for sooner than that. So I'm going to say we'll have it up in operation hopefully in October of this year. We began some initial contract negotiations with private partners who will be involved with us in the plaza development. So these are private property owners that own property in and as part of what is the plaza, designated plaza area, how it will be opened, when it will be opened, how it will be controlled over that time period. So you will see at least 2 contracts come to you from 2 of our private partners. So this will be a private-public partnership on our plaza area. This last week, we brought the Texas side staff folks in, shared that preliminary design with them also at this point in time, so we can learn how to program and offer this program to everybody in the area. Again, we will be a facilitator for this program. Means we will provide the facilities, lease it out to a programmer or an operator for concerts, special events, whatever they are. Many of the events that we've had down in that area will like to see us do such things as controlling the area a little better. So that will be part of that. We'll also divide that area up into sections. If they just wanted, as an example, the parking lot where we've had a lot of events adjacent to 1894 there, which is our public lot there, then we could say that's Lot A, and it'll only be X number of dollars per day. But if they want the whole area, then it will be priced out accordingly as well, too. So the contracts will come to you looking like that, with both charges on the areas as well as any agreement or special terms in relationship to use of the private lands that are part of that area as well. I do want to ask you if you do have any direction to give to me after the not passing the water and sewer rates tonight. So I'd like to know if you have any direction that you'd like to offer to me in the form of a motion or a resolution or something, how to bring that back, when to bring it back, if you want something in it or you don't want something in it. I'd appreciate some direction from you.
Anything else?
That's it, sir.
Any other discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Let's have a motion and a second to adjourn. Could you call the roll, please?
Director Roberts,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Brewer,
Yes.
Director Minor,
Yes.
Director Hart,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes, we're adjourned.